Hello, welcome back to our episodes around Client Analyzer. My name is Heike and I have Miso with me again. Miso, please, for those that couldn't watch the first episodes, please introduce yourself.
This is Mina Abdelmalek. I am a product manager for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint in CXE team. And yeah, I'm joining you today to talk about Endpoint Security Management, how to manage your Defender security settings directly from the Defender portal through MDE.
Perfect, right. And for everybody who wants to get the overview of the Client Analyzer and how to troubleshoot with it, please go to aka.ms/ninja show, and there you can find the previous episodes. So now, Miso, so I think we need to clarify a little bit that in order to manage the security settings, there is different options. So I think the most common option is customers have either Intune or they do have System Center Configuration Manager or a third-party MDM, or the new version is to basically use Defender for Endpoint directly and manage the settings there. So for these four options, different troubleshooting steps, or how is all of this connected?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Heike. So we have different tools to manage the endpoint security policies, or the antivirus policies. So you can use GPO, ACCM, Intune, WMI, PowerShell, uh, or third-party MDM solution, or you can use the endpoint security management directly by Defender for Endpoint. Um, we introduced the endpoint security management tool so the user can manage all the security policies from one place, from the Defender portal. It's even allow the admin to control the devices, the security policies for any unmanaged devices. So you don't have to enroll the device into MECM or Intune or anything to manage the endpoint security policies. As soon as you onboard the device to MDE, there are few prerequisite steps you need to take, and then the device will be managed by MDE. When we talk about managing by MDE, we are talking about only the security policies. We are talking about the antivirus policies, attack surface reductions, and we are adding more and more to endpoint security management.
Mm-hmm. I also want to remind people that we actually did various episodes on exactly the endpoint security management. Again, go check out aka.ms/ninja show. You can filter by Defender for Endpoint, and then you can see the security settings management episodes there as well. So we don't want to go into the details. So let's kick it off and let's have a look at how that flow looks like.
Okay, thanks, Heike. To be able to fully understand how to troubleshoot endpoint security management, we need to understand what is the workflow happen on the back end for the device to be managed by MDE. So in this example, the device is not managed by Intune at all. So the device has never been enrolled into Intune. So the first thing happens on the back end is that the device will be registered into Intra ID. By saying registered, it's not Intra ID joint or Intra ID hybrid joint. It's just registered. Then another workflow happens to register the device to Intune. Again, registering means the device will not be fully enrolled into Intune, it will only be registered. After this workflow happens, the device will be managed by MDE. Always remember, MDE management or the endpoint security management override any other management tool except Intune. So if the device is managed by GPO, endpoint security management will override it. If it's managed by third-party MDM, it will be override as well. By default, Endpoint Security Management will override the devices managed by MECM/SCCM unless you turn on this feature to keep the devices managed by SCCM. This is another feature under enforcement scope in the Defender portal.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, I think I discussed this again, I think with Dan Levy. And this is super critical and super important to understand where the settings are coming from, because you might change something and then you look into the settings, but they conflict or whatever. So in order to not have these conflicts, we only override Intune, and we basically, yeah, there is an Intune agent on the box and we don't do anything. And for the others, you need to toggle the override. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The first step I would take if the device is not managed by MDE, I will make sure that the device is not registered in any other tenant Entra ID.
And then how would you do this? You would go back to your, the magic HTM page, the client analyzer report, to see where it is.
Yes.
How would you do this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in this case, as you see here, the device configuration management details that we see, the version is 2, and the enrollment status, the device is enrolled to AED and MEM. And I see here that I have the Intune device ID and the Azure ED tenant ID. So I make sure here that this is the right Azure tenant ID I am trying to onboard the device to. This should match the tenant ID in my Microsoft Defender XDR port.
Mm-hmm.
Right here, I see that it's not domain joined, so this is unmanaged devices. So it's not Azure ED joined. This is very important when we troubleshoot the endpoint security management, because if the device is enrolled or hybrid Azure ED joined to another tenant, it will show up here. So I just want to make sure that if it's Azure ED joined, it's not Azure ED joined, so that's fine. I will not have any problem. I will not have any mismatch with another intra tenant.
Okay, but it means enrolled is good, joined, I wouldn't say it's bad, right? So customers have Azure, like Entra ID joined devices, but then they also manage it through Intune and not the MDE directly.
Yes, that's correct. We used to have Endpoint Security Management version 1. What we are talking about right now, it's version 2. In version 1, we required the device to be hybrid Azure AD joined first before Endpoint Security Management works. In version 2, we took off this requirement, so the device doesn't have to be hybrid Azure AD joined first. The Azure or the Intra, I keep saying the Azure AD, the Intra ID registrations happens on the back end, and it's not required to
Mhm.
manually hybrid Azure AD joint or hybrid Intra ID the device.
Okay, but it can be.
It can.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Good.
So I'm just making sure that everything looks fine here. Also, I need to make sure that I don't have any network issues right here under detailed results. If you
Mm-hmm.
go back to the first episode, we talked about the required URLs for Defender for Endpoint to work. Or one of those URLs is required for Endpoint Security Management to work. So we need to double check if we don't have any errors here with communication.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is with Client Analyzer. Let's go back to the portal to troubleshoot the device from the Defender portal. Okay, this is my device. I see that the device type is workstation, the domain is workgroup, so I can see the device is not part of the domain, it's totally unmanaged.
Mm-hmm.
If I scroll to the right here, I see it's onboarded. I already tagged it with MDE management. This is a requirement. And I see it's managed by MDE. Let's open the device. Okay. To get more insight on MDE management or endpoint security management, I can scroll down here, and under device management, I see it's managed by MDE, and MDE enrollment status is success. In the previous example I mentioned, if the device is already enrolled to another intra ID tenant, you will see the error here, mismatch tenant. This
Mm-hmm.
means, yeah, the device is already enrolled to another intra ID tenant, and you are trying to onboard it to a different tenant. So there is a conflict between both. So just we make it very easier for you to, okay, this is a mismatch. You need to double check. Okay.
And then, so customers would now go and check in the tenant on a different device what is the right Entra ID, tenant ID, then go back to the client analyzer and check, oh, it's a different one. And then what do? They remove that device, but I think when it was registered once, it's not. How would they troubleshoot this and resolve this?
Okay. So the customer will need to remove the device from the old tenant. So they
Mm-hmm.
need to remove the registry. So unenroll the device from the old intra ID tenant,
The
and
wrong
then
one. I don't know if
yes,
it's old.
yes, it's the wrong one. Okay, and yeah, and just wait like a few minutes. The average is 90 minutes. So the MDF
So give
tenant,
it time. Not
yeah,
like, okay, rush, unenroll, and enroll immediately. Wait,
yes, we
go
we
for
need to give
lunch.
time. Correct.
Good.
Okay, so to troubleshoot this from the device, we can double check it with the registry edit.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I shared here some examples from presentation from one of my devices. Okay, so if you go here to local machine, software, Microsoft Windows Advanced Threat Protection, and the Sense CM configuration, I took a screenshot from one of my devices as well. So let me share it with you here. So this is how it looks like. As soon as the workflow kicks off in the back end, the device establish a communication with intra ID first, and this is through a certificate. So you will see here, the workflow started the certification. So it's communicating right now between the device and intra ID portal and create the certificate. As soon as this step is completed, it moved to MEM Intune and establish a new communication with Intune through a certificate. So I see that
Mm-hmm.
both certificates are installed on the device, so the communication is working. And then the device will be managed by MDE.
Mm-hmm.
To troubleshoot this from Intune as well, let's see this on the Intune portal.
Before you go to the Intune portal, a quick question. So
Sure.
in the portal, if it would be managed by mismatch, would you still have that registry entry and showing the mismatch, or would a mismatch not even create that registry entry?
No, it will create the registry entry for intra, but
Mm-hmm.
it will not complete the workflow because we see a mismatch between both.
Okay. Okay. So this is not an indicator that things are working. um, okay. Good.
Okay, so if we go to Intune, so I go to endpoint.microsoft.com, and under devices, I click on Windows, and I see here that the device is managed by MDE. As you see, I don't have any information about the ownership, the compliance, the user UPN, because Intune doesn't know anything about this device because it's not fully enrolled into Intune. It's only managed by MDE.
So it is enrolled in
So
Intune, but not managed by Intune.
it's registered into Intune. It's not
Oh,
invoked.
registered. Ay, ay, ay. All
Yes.
these words. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so I can see here that. I'm missing a lot of information about the device because it's not enrolled into Intune. And you see all the options here are grayed out.
Mhm.
Okay, so if I go back to the Defender portal, I see the device is managed by MDE, and I can go to the security settings. So if I scroll down under Endpoint and click on Configuration Management, click on Endpoint Security Policies, and I can just create a new policy and target it to those devices. The device has to be on intra AD group to be able to post the policies to. So I cannot post a policy to a single device. I have to create an intra group here. I see that's okay. Meso clients, MDE attach. Just I call it MDE attach. This is the old name for endpoint security policies. And I can see here, okay, this is a dynamic membership group. So this is a quick trick also. If you want all the devices to be grouped automatically or join this group, you can just add this filter. So it's managed type equals Microsoft Sense. So this any devices managed by endpoint security policies will join this group. So you don't have to do this every time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. And yep, that's it from the Intune portal, from the Defender portal.
We also have the case that you see all the policies from Intune, or the policies that you create in the Defender portal show up in Intune, which means the device is then managed by Intune, but you can still apply settings via the Defender portal, and it's the same. You are editing an Intune policy, but through the Defender portal. What is the information on the device in the client analyzer when it is this situation, this use case?
Yeah, this is a good question, Heike. So, as we said in the beginning, endpoint security management will not override Intune. So, we run a first check on the workflow. If the device is managed by Intune, endpoint security management will not kick off the workflow on the back end because it's already managed
Mm-hmm.
by Intune. So, let's take an example of a device is managed by Intune.
I see one.
Yes, right here. So, it's managed by Intune already, and I see the full information here. So as you see here, I see more information. I see the serial number,
Mm-hmm.
the device model, the compliance level, everything. And I see here that most of the options are turned on. When you push the policy from the Defender portal, you still can use the same policy for endpoint security management and Intune management devices as well. We targeted both. So if you see here, the target for the policy, it's MDM, comma, Microsoft Sense. So the
Mm-hmm.
same policy can be deployed and applied for both.
Ah, okay.
In the past, we had this problem, like we had two different configuration profiles, one for MDM, one for Microsoft Sense.
Okay, cool. So now it means if you actually create a new policy and you target MDM and Microsoft Sense meaning endpoint management, MDE, and MDM meaning it would then also create that policy in Intune for all the devices managed by Intune.
Correct.
If someone would then change the policy in Intune, it will only target the devices managed by Intune.
No, this is a good question. So whatever change you do on the Defender portal or Intune, it will be synced between two portals. So as you see here, okay, you see all the policies here. If I go to Intune and click on Endpoint Security Policies, click on Antivirus, I will see all the policies listed here as well. If I change anything in the policy here, it will be changed on the Defender portal and vice versa.
Ah.
Okay, so just to make sure when you deploy policies, the best practice for this is create different policies for each device groups. So if I'm targeting unmanaged devices, let's keep it separate and separate policies. For Intune, keep it on separate. You can use it for servers as well, for Linux machine and Mac. So I can create endpoint security policies for Mac devices and Linux. And also in Windows policies, I can target Windows servers. So as you see
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
it's applied to Windows
Mhm.
10, 11, and Windows Server. The best practice, especially when we talk about Windows devices, it's the best practice to keep separate the Windows client from the Windows Server policies.
Yeah, you want to have different policies there. Use cases of the service, obviously. Good. Any last recommendations from you? Anything that you would recommend? I loved your suggestions already on how to operationalize this. Basically, say, hey, keep different groups, keep different policies for different device types. Anything else to help people troubleshoot or not even get to the troubleshooting point?
I would make sure that all the required URLs are opened on the back end. If you have a proxy or firewall, make sure it's all opened. Uh, just make sure the device is not hybrid Azure AD joined or joined any other tenant unless the one you are using to onboard the devices
Mhm.
to. Uh, if you have the devices managed by ACCM, you need to double check if those devices are not co-managed between ACCM and Intune. This can
Mhm.
cause a lot of problems. Um, if the device is managed by ACCM and you need to keep it managed by ACCM, just make sure that under settings here, endpoints, enforcement scope, you turn on this feature. If you turn it on, all the ACCM devices will still be managed by ACCM.
To not override with the MDE settings.
Correct. And in troubleshooting, if the endpoint security management is not working, I will check on Intra. If the device is already showing up on Intra, I will double check on Intune if the device is showing up on Intune portal as managed by MDE.
Mhm.
And then I will give it some time to fully enrolled into endpoint security management, and I can go back to the device page and see if it's
Yeah,
managed by
yeah.
MD or not.
Cool. So I think there was a lot again. Um, and for everyone, again, we have 3 episodes now around this topic. Go back to aka.ms/ninja show to rewatch maybe one of the previous episodes. And Mina, thank you so much for being my expert on 3 episodes. And maybe I will have you back in one of the other episodes going forward for some more troubleshooting steps or help to not even get to the point. So again, thank you so much. And everyone else, thanks for watching. Talk soon. Bye bye.